guys, it's Brittany from Beyond the Veil. I'd like to welcome you first to my home, and thank you for tuning into this exclusive interview on Spoken. The title itself, Spoken, comes from my need and desire to speak out as an artist on my stories, experiences, and just things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to, or artists wouldn't necessarily be able to do if they were under a record label. So it's kind of my a free step as an independent artist to tell the world, or tell all my listeners, that it's okay to speak out, and in a loving way, and in a way that influences and impacts others. With the hood of red, I cannot find the answer. In these troubled times, I'm gullible to every cry, a scream, a lie, a wolf into time, a wolf into time. The album art itself, it was kind of a spontaneous thing. We had a photo shoot that we did with Leo DJ. He is an amazing photographer and a good friend of ours from Ken Island. And he wanted to do a photo shoot with us, and so we just met at a park, and it was really windy that day. And we had a lot of fun taking some photos, and when my family and I had to move, we didn't really have anything to use for the album shoot, or for the album art. And I went back and I looked at some of the photos that Leo had done, and I was like, well, these will work perfectly because they were spontaneous, and they reflected a lot about what the album itself meant. I mean, spoken, just to live, just to be free and to speak your heart. And so we used those, and it looks great. I mean, you guys can tell me yourself, but the album should be out in October 2012, so we're really excited for that. The album itself was recorded in Baltimore at Fairgreen Studio. Fairgreen was a band that we formerly played with back in the day when we were still establishing ourselves as Beyond the Veil, and they had created a studio that other artists could come and record. And so we recorded a single back in 2009 with them, and this past winter we decided that we wanted to do a full album. And so we met with them, and Kenny and Brian were the ones that did most of the studio instruments for the album. They did an amazing job. It was also spontaneous, just some of the parts that they would put in. It wasn't really planned, and it was just awesome how it all fell into place. Chuck Mabe, he did the guitar for Vigilante. He's an amazing guitarist, and I wouldn't want anyone else to do that solo on Vigilante, so he was awesome. And yeah, it was really cool just being able to get together and do the studio work, and just see what would happen one day and not happen the next. And it took a while to kind of get things settled because we had moved in May, and so we were communicating, thousands of miles apart from each other. And so, but they did a really, really good job. I do recommend them. It's Fairgreen Studio. As far as the meanings go of the songs, there are a few that really mean a lot to me. Words was probably one of the hardest ones I had to write. It's pretty much about Christians persecuting other Christians. People who say they love God, and yet they don't love their neighbor or their brother or sister, in Christ. And it was a pretty hard song to write. A personal experience that I had, and I continue to have with people that I meet, and I'm sure other people could relate to that song. Hood of Red was extremely spontaneous. I was sitting at my piano one day, and our puppy, Nisha, which she is right there, came and sat next to, or sat on my feet. When she was a puppy, she would sit on my feet. And I remember how people were just starting to tell us how she looked like a wolf more and more. And my favorite color is red, and so I just started kind of thinking about Little Red Riding Hood and that story, and how she was naive. She had been told not to go into the forest, and how naive she was. And she came across this wolf, and this wolf was deceiving. And I began to think about how oftentimes we go into situations with a naive mindset, and we come across people who aren't what they seem, and it hurts us. And so it takes a while for that to heal. And so Hood of Red is mainly about just going into situations, meeting people that end up hurting us, but and we find ourselves in this place where we're just like, okay, what was that lesson all about, and when will my heart heal from that, and when will I be able to let it go? And we have these moments, Christians or non-Christians, everybody has these moments where you're just like, okay, when is this going to stop hurting? The Nightingale is probably my favorite song on the album, just because of how much it means to me. And when I went into the music business, the music industry, I never ever wanted or thought myself to be a worship leader. It wasn't that I didn't like worship. I do enjoy it. I enjoy worshiping, and what it was I didn't want the responsibility of leading a congregation into worship. I also didn't want to feel like I was stuck at a certain church, or wasn't able to travel. And so when I was 18 or 20, I think it might have been 20, when I was 20, Regent University had asked if we could play at 7 Days Ablaze, which is a CBN broadcasting show. And so, you grow up and you want to be a star, you want to be a musician, and you think, I'm going to be on national television for so-and-so and this and this. And the last thing I ever thought I was going to be on national television for would be worship. And so God put us on this television, and I became open to playing worship at our shows. And we would have a Friday and Saturday night show, and then on Sunday we would go to a nearby church and just lead the congregation in worship. And it was a growing experience for me, because I had to find the difference between being a performer and being a worship leader. And I remember getting a call. I remember the sun was setting, and I was on my way home from work, and I got a call from this guy named Jess Boja, and he was starting a church in Maryland, in Havre de Grace, which was an hour and a half away from my family and I, and he was in need of a worship leader. The church was beginning to get off the ground and started services, and he was in need of a worship leader. And so I remember at first I was like, no, I don't want to lead worship. And I remember looking at the sunset, and it almost looked like there was an explosion, and it was coming towards me. And I called my mom, and I told her, I said, Mom, I don't want the last thing, if the world was ending right now, I would not want the last thing on my heart and on my lips to be something that wasn't glorifying to God. And so this Nightingale story comes from Hans Christian Andersen's story called The Nightingale. And what happens is this bird is found by this emperor, and she gets brought into this kingdom, and she sings for this kingdom, and the kingdom flourishes, and she enjoys just the presence of what the kingdom has to offer. And so if you parallel that to my experience with Restore Church, I enjoyed, and I was loving the fact that this community was actively seeking a way to bring God in everything that they were doing. And it was so much fun, and my heart was just leaping for joy. And so I had a lot of fun with that, and then as the story continues, the nightingale begins to become sad. It's, you know, the classic tale of the caged bird. You know, you're supposed to set the caged bird free, and so my heart began to wear on the distance and the fact that I wasn't pursuing my dreams as, you know, the leader of Beyond the Veil. I was becoming a full-time worship leader, and not saying that that wasn't good, but it wasn't where my heart was. And so I began to feel the effects of not being where I felt like I needed to be. I had to leave the church back in May, this past May, and it was extremely difficult. And you know, the Bozier family were just so thankful that I was able to be there for that time, and the church was thankful that I was there for the time, but I knew that it was hard for them as it was hard for me to separate myself from the church and to move on. And so we ended up moving to Texas, and in the story, the bird, she gets set free. Will I come back? Probably not to live, but yes, to visit. And I love Restored Church, and I love the experience that I had with the team and just the leadership, and the people they are all amazing. It's a church that really, really, like I said, seeks love and its understanding. And so that aspect, yes, I will always come and visit and always support and encourage. But as far as me returning as the worship leader there, it doesn't look like it, because I just feel like God is continuing to move in, you know, my family's life and my life, you know, my career as a musician, and we're just pressing forward to something different, something that speaks more to my heart. And yeah, so I love them. Like I said, I love them so much, and I'm always there for them. And I will visit, I will come back, and I will sing my songs. I'm the nightingale.
I believe that we can be. If time won't change, don't let it change our minds.